Loading. Oh.
Hello.
Is this good? Are we on? Right. Oh gosh, there's already a conversation happening right now. This is great.
Wow.
Two thumbs down. Wow.
Thumbs down.
Oh, who's giving us a thumbs down? Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to wait and see if people are jumping on. Oh, we've got a super chat already. About time 2, common sense has prevailed. Okay. Look, the conversation has already started without us. This is fantastic. Before we actually kick off, we're just going to wait a little bit longer. I think we've got a lot of people here already, though. Hello, everybody. Hello. Major Skies, hello. Hashtag the current thing. Hi.
Where are you reading? Oh, look how whizzy this is.
Yes, this is great. Look, there's a lot of people.
I know.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
We're on. Yes, we are. All right, I think people are here. I think we should just kick off. Okay.
I suppose. I wonder who watched it. Did we watched it? Did anyone out there in YouTube land watch it? My God, it was riveting. What a momentous day. The gravitas of Mr. Prince Charles was just...
Wow.
Just, well, there are no words.
Well, look, let's just start off by saying, of course, we were like amping it up a little bit on social media because we were excited because Grant Shapps last week or a couple of weeks ago basically told the press that we were going to hear about regulations, legislation for electric scooters. And we thought, my God, finally.
I don't know about you. I actually thought that meant that we would hear about it in the Queen's speech.
Well, he did say that something was going to be mentioned in the Queen's speech, so I don't know whether that kind of got lost between the Queen and Charles, or...
So I've been thinking about this, and I'm no expert, and perhaps somebody out there is, but the level of grain or detail in that speech was minimal.
It was brushed over.
Right? So, for example, the P&O ferry thing. So we all know that the government's planning to make it very, very difficult P&O ferries to dock unless they're paying their workers the right amount. There's no mention of that. Self-driving cars, there was no mention of that. We know they're planning to do that. So all the detail was kind of sunk down into, we're going to innovate transport in the UK for green and innovative transport. And that was kind of it.
I feel like he's in the room.
I know, right? I've been practicing all morning. I think that was the mention of this new fabled transport bill, and hopefully, if Mr. Shapps is the honourable member of Parliament for the people that he says he is, he will do as he said he would do, and he'll give us some regulations.
Yeah.
Which obviously will be marvellous, and that's what we will be fighting for.
Yeah. So if anybody missed the speech, basically, just as we were saying, it was pretty much a bullet point overview of what the Queen's government are going to be looking into and acting on. There are a lot of regulations and legislation words used in the speech, which got me really excited because I thought they were about to say something about electric scooters, and they never did.
No.
But
he didn't really say anything about anything. He sort of went, there's NATO and protecting these shores and levelling up, and just lots of buzzwords, but there was literally no detail at all on anything at all. So if you drill down into the government website, if you go onto UK Parliament,
so it's UK, so it's lordslibrary.parliament.uk. We've actually put the link in the description, so go click on it right now and have a look. Go to number 4, and that is talking about electric scooters specifically. And what did they say, Mark?
They said, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
There's a lot.
But, so what did they say? Well, what they basically said is in the 2022-23 session, they plan to regulate regulate 4 e-scooters.
So what does that mean, the 2022 to 2023
Okay, so
session?
Parliament sits in a session every year. They kind of announce what they're going to do in May, and then the session is open, and they go through all the legislation and all the new bills and all the amendments that they said they were going to do. Hopefully they complete that in the session, or it rolls over to the next session. So unless they kick it into the long grass again, you'd expect something to happen within the next year. Not what we were hoping was going to happen. I was kind of thinking, oh, right, hey, we're going to be out tomorrow in the sunshine. But it doesn't look like it.
I didn't think it would quite go as far as Queenie literally saying e-scooters are legal, and suddenly sort of you can see e-rides just flinging out of the out of Parliament.
I mean,
but,
if I'm perfectly honest, I don't really understand the process exactly, and I think there's a lot of waggle room for these guys if they want to change their mind or delay stuff. Or, I mean, there was some suspicion that this whole escapade was what we call a dead cat strategy, which is a diversionary tactic to sort of take everyone's attention from the odd G&T that was had in the House of Commons, whilst they shouldn't have been. So maybe not. And, to a certain extent, no one really cares. If this gets it over the line, the right decision for the wrong reason is still the right decision. Okay.
I think the main point here is there are movements. Things are happening clearly behind the scenes because we don't really know what is happening yet. But they have mentioned it. It is written down. It is in this Lords Parliament library thing. So just the problem is we just don't know exactly what the regulations are just yet, but they're saying that the regulations will be put in place. So all in all, this is a positive. Things are going to change, but we just don't know exactly what that is going to be yet.
You made a good point. I mean, there's a line in here, and he says the government wanted to crack down on the private market and make it illegal to sell scooters which don't meet the regulatory standards. Well, here's the thing. We don't have any regulatory standards. So if they're going to crack down, they have to introduce regulatory standards first.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. And, I know it sounds draconian, but it could just be that with a lot of products that come into the UK, there are certain kind of compliance documents that they need. So we need to know that the battery's not going to explode. We need to know that the thing's not going to fall to bits on you when you're riding around the road. So which we all agree with. So hopefully it's not crazy, and they're not going to go chasing people around the town because their scooter does 16.5 miles an hour instead of 15.5 or something silly like that. So anyway, I think that's a good point you made. Elsewhere in here, I mean, that's really all the detail. It just says there'll be regulatory standards. Cool, that's what we want. And they're going to introduce this legislation in this session. That's pretty much it.
And the reason why Grant Shapps came forward to say that we're going to discuss this in Parliament is because there are a group of 9 organisations who basically went to him and said, please, can you try and create a new light vehicle classification? So he responded to that, and so it seems it could go that way, that we could be getting a specific classification for electric scooters. But again, it's all just we don't really know yet is the problem, and I thought we were actually going to get more information today, so I'm a bit annoyed that we haven't heard anything more.
We know that was mooted, so we know, and we also know that there's some conflict between, I think the DFT want to go one way, and I think the Cabinet Office wants to go the other way. I'm not really sure, but there was a difference of opinion. But I think that the current thinking is some kind of ID scheme, because for some reason they're really petrified that people are going to jump on these scooters and there will be lawlessness and you won't be able to track them down because they'll have no registration number. And then you kind of point out, wasn't that like bicycles, and was that a huge issue? And no, it wasn't. Obviously, there's been no kind of like bicycle kind of crime wave, and you wouldn't really expect there to be an e-scooter crime wave either.
So I'm just looking at some comments from people. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and for getting involved in the conversation. So Stacey Smith asked, so maybe legal by this time next year. I think it's looking positive. I mean, we know as much as you, Stacey, but it looks like we're going to know a lot more by May this year. It doesn't mean to say that they will be legal, but I think by May we'll probably know regulations. It's looking like, yeah. I
mean, I don't know if anyone out there knows where the government kind of publishes its sort of diary, but I suppose they must schedule this stuff somewhere. So if there's a transport bill to introduce, someone must know when they intend to do that. So that would be the first bit of research that we need to do, is to figure that out.
Matt, the vaping e-skater, hello, asked the question, will they make electric boards legal too, do you think?
No, not for now.
This is the thing. So this is my view. Of course, we at Electroheads and of course personal electric transport, we love boards, we love one wheels, we love electric scooters, any e-mobility. The fact that we have been harping on about electric scooters in particular is because that's the one thing that the government have basically pricked their ears up to and have started to do something about. So I feel like it is a little bit like a start them very gently, slowly, hold their hand with the electric scooter regulation, and you would hope that that would lead into more regulation for other e-rides, because they are just as important as electric scooters. But I think with e-boards, some people see them more as a recreational piece of equipment rather than electric scooters which get people to work, which I don't think is the case at all. Of course you can commute on an e-board, but there is that kind of slight disparity there, isn't it? And I think we need to get the government understanding that a motor in an e-board is exactly the same in ways as a motor in an electric scooter. So I think it's like a slowly, gently. I'm hoping that we will get there.
It's tricky. I mean, like what we want to happen is for the government and society at large to cotton on to the fact that we need to transition from very heavy forms of transport like cars and buses and things like that you use a lot of energy, to much more lightweight, efficient stuff like e-scooters or e-bikes or cargo bikes or many of the different types of vehicles that people are developing. The problem is that once you sort of strip the weight out and take the speed down a bit, you can literally do all sorts of things like trikes, quads, things with covers, things with cargo, little scooters, little wheels. Now, faced with that, how does the DFT regulate for that? Faced with a kind of a wacky racers kind of sort of view of what it could be in the future, like, you know, hundreds of different types of vehicles. If you're faced with that, how do you make sure that this stuff is safe? And that's the big question. So at the moment, the landscape is e-skate, EUC, you've got one wheels, you've got hoverboards, that's the kind of like the weird balancing stuff. Then you've got scooters, you've got powerful scooters, you've got cargo carrying scooters, and just before you get onto bikes, you know, I mean, it's just so much stuff out there. So I'm not really sure where you go with that, you know.
I'm just seeing some comments. So Arthur's just tuned, sorry, not Arthur, Altima 22 just tuned in. Is this really happening? So just to update anybody who's just joined us, we believed that there was going to be some kind of announcement today from either Parliament or in the Queen's speech about the regulation moving forward with electric scooters. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. There are some people saying this is clickbait. We did really think that they were going to mention something, so unfortunately they haven't.
But they might not ever have done so because it's too detailed. I think they have announced it. It's just they announced it a few days ago in that statement from Grant Shapps when he said, we're going to have a new transport bill. In this transport bill, we're going to deal with P&O ferries, this fast train track between Crewe and Manchester. There's some kind of stuff about British Railways, and there's e-scooters. And there's also self-driving vehicles, and all this is going to be packaged in this new transport bill, which Prince Charles just announced.
Sure.
So,
but we don't know the details.
We don't know the details, and you know, and at the moment, I suppose it's true to say that because sort of Charlie Boy didn't say so, the government could just suddenly go, oh yeah, no, we changed our minds, just kidding, no, you know, which I don't actually think is going to happen. I think he's made a pretty strong statement to the. Was it a transport committee that he's going to do it? So I think it would be difficult for him to backtrack now.
Sure.
So it's not clickbait. Yes, I think it is actually happening. I think it's going to happen in this session. Which
the session is hopefully going to finish May 2022, right?
23.
So 23.
It's 22 now, you see.
So it actually is a whole year.
Yes. Beard's got greyer, you know. We've all got more mature, stuff's happened.
Okay, so look, it looks like the ball is rolling. It's not happening as quickly as we hoped it would, but it does seem like things are happening. They are talking about it. Grant Shapps has talked about it.
And announced it.
Exactly. Now, I'm seeing a few comments from people basically asking about the regulations and what we think they're going to be. So I just spotted a few. So Adam Fenton said, do you think driving licenses will still be required considering e-scooters will be speed restricted? like bikes. So yeah, again, in terms of regulation, I think we think that there should be sort of like two categories, shouldn't there?
Mm-hmm.
There should be the electric scooters that are slightly lower wattage, lower speed, top speed, that can just be ridden just like a bicycle. So you can just jump on it. You don't need a license. You don't need what else you need for a bike? Nothing.
Insurance.
yeah. And then there's the second class of electric scooter, which I think is the more powerful, which you probably do need like maybe a CBT, a helmet.
Well, because it's an electric motorbike. So just like, we have to kind of stop sort of putting things in boxes. It's like if it's got two wheels, you get on it, it takes you from A to B at speeds of kind of over 20 miles an hour. It's a moped. It just doesn't have a seat. And anyway, you can screw a seat to them, and they're definitely a moped.
Yeah.
But it's a moped, guys. Just because you stand on it, it doesn't make it from outer space. So look, I think on the whole, if stuff's going 20 miles an hour or less and doesn't weigh like 5 tons, then it's essentially just like a bicycle and should be treated as such. I don't think we need to kind of get overly bureaucratic, although, let's face it, because of the pushback everywhere, I'm sure the DFT will get a little bit more bureaucratic than we would like. Are they going to ask for driving licenses? I doubt it,
Yeah.
I can't see it, because if they do that, the argument is, well, surely you have to do the same for e-bikes, which they don't want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an argument to say that they'll bring e-bikes and e-scooters into line, so the specifications will be aligned. Hopefully they're going to raise the wattage to 500.
They have
which they decided to do with the ride-sharing scooters, by the way.
Oh.
Because they put normal-sized blokes on it, tried to get them up an incline, and guess what?
Doesn't work.
Right? So they're like, well, you can't just be sort of fattest about it and sort of, sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Well, no, I mean...
All right, you can't discriminate against people with different body types. And you have to kind of, in this age of inclusivity, you have to make sure that everybody can jump on a scooter and get up a hill.
But it's not even that. I mean, we've spoken about electric bikes, cargo bikes. They can't run on a 250 watt motor because they've got to get around with a load of cargo on. Somebody that wants to sort of take their kid to school on their bike or whatever needs a bit more extra oomph to get them around. It's sort of like 250 watt is like bare minimum, isn't it?
It is. And also, like most sort of supposedly legal e-bikes are obviously breaking the law. I mean, Go Cycle does not. You can't do 25 miles an hour on 250 watts. I'm sorry. There's just, physics would tell you can't. Not if it's going to sort of like not explode or heat up or whatever. So
yeah.
I think a lot of e-bikes out there with which are kind of like supposedly you can kind of crack them for different markets. They've got to be the motors are capable of more than 250 watts for sure.
Yeah. I'm really hoping they put up the watt and the speed limit. So I think 20 miles per hour is a very sensible speed to have. Or, I mean, do we even need speed limits on these things? Because cars don't have them. So as long as we stick to the speed of the road, surely that is just completely fine.
When I'd say speed limit, I think, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I mean, obviously with cars, you need a certain amount of training and insurance to get in the thing. So if you're going to have something which is unregulated, you might want to put some kind of cap on it.
Yeah.
Does it want to be less than 20 miles an hour? I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
But they'll probably align with Europe and go 15.5.
Now, Anton Cannon, thank you for writing in. He says, he asked, can we please have some advice for people in my situation? £850 fine, 6 points and a driving offence for no insurance for going 7 miles per hour in a bicycle lane. I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, it's just really bad. It makes me really angry. So many of our watchers of our community have had this happen to them because it is an extreme penalty, and I think currently you can try and fight it, and sometimes people are able to like basically get it knocked down if they go through the courts, but I mean it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. Some people haven't been so successful.
Personally, I'd always advise to take it to court, because I think it forces somebody like, supposedly a pillar of the community to stand up and say, yes, I think it's totally fair enough that I'm fining you £850 and putting £6 on your driving licence for doing 7 miles an hour in a cycle lane. And he or she has to go on public record as saying so. So, and that, I'm not sure I'd be comfortable doing that. And I know when we went to court with Kyla, they kind of effectively kind of cut the fine to ribbons because they weren't comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Because it was obvious that, she was just on her way to work, and it was not fair.
So in terms of what we'd recommend, Mark thinks maybe try and take it to court if you can. If you do have the time and you're able to fight your case, I don't know what it means if electric scooters do become legal. That's slightly out of my knowledge.
Not a lot.
But they will probably just want to keep the money. I don't know whether you could actually take it to court again and it's legal now.
To be honest with you, it's not about the money. It's just that, if you flouted the law at the time, that's the problem. It's like, they're not, once they change the law, they're not basically saying, oh, well, the law was completely wrong, so therefore anyone who got clobbered by the law at the time, it needs to be kind of like given back to you. It's just not going to work like that.
Yeah. Very frustrating situation. Very, very frustrating.
So sorry, guys. It's very frustrating.
So I'm just going to see what other people are commenting. Let me see. People write in. What are your thoughts? We can quickly talk about, we actually put a poll out on our Instagram to ask you what you thought the regulations were going to be, if they were going to announce any today, and there was a really interesting response. What was it? So 38% thought that a 250 watt power restriction would apply. 37% thought that insurance, tax, MOT would all be required for use, and 25% said nothing, they'll be banned forever.
Nice.
So quite a sort of balanced response there. Yeah. But,
okay. Well, 250 watt is unlikely because they've already done the research on that and decided that 500 was appropriate. So you've got to be thinking that they've spent our money researching this. They've come up with a list of specifications for the ride sharing guys. Why would they suddenly just kind of go, oh, that's absolute rhubarb. You guys can make do with 250 watts and 10 miles an hour. It would just be a bit silly.
What I would like to see is obviously the regulation of good quality batteries and things like that, because that's what they're doing with the rental scooters, and that's why they have been quite a success in that sense, is because they're built really well. They've got good quality. They're pretty robust. They can stand outside for months at a time.
We are repairing them. For one of the.
Let's not say.
We're not going to say who it
names.
is, but let me tell you that they're basically based on the same scooters that you buy down in Halfords.
Sure.
And they've been upgraded over the years, but they're not.
Sure.
They really aren't that great. And but look, it is progress to a certain extent, and I think it's right to say that we need manufacturers to build scooters appropriate for the UK.
Yeah.
Which means, guess what? They can cope with a bit of rainfall, or they can be knocked about a bit, or or maybe some kind of anti-theft stuff. I don't know, but yeah.
This is interesting. Emily Peters from the States. Hello. From the States, setting a watt limit seems ridiculous as weight is a factor always, but using a hardware-based speed limiter seems reasonable for those without a license. Yeah, I think that's the thing, because the watt of a motor doesn't actually dictate the speed, does it? That's the thing. It's more like the oomph, the power that it has to kind of get you up a hill or get you off the line. So I think that's really important. And that takes us back to sort of businesses using electric cargo bikes and things like that, because they need more power to actually do the job properly.
Well, in Europe, they've gone for a speed cap. So there's a little white wire. It's plugged into a speed limiter. The scooter hits 25 kilometers an hour and you go, ugh, which isn't much fun. But yes, it's better than having a cap on watts for sure.
Yeah. So just to kind of recap on what we've been talking about, if anybody's joined recently, we thought Charles was going to mention something about electric scooters regulation. That hasn't happened in the speech itself, but we have seen that Grant Shapps has announced that they are working on regulations for electric scooters. We don't know anything more just yet, but it seems like the ball is rolling.
So yeah, they announced effectively a new transport bill, and the Secretary of State for Transport, Grant Shapps, announced a few days ago that within that transport bill would be regulation for the use of private e-scooters. So it's looking good. However, don't bet the farm on it, because politicians have been known to kick things into the long grass, or backtrack, or do whatever the hell they like to get voted back in. So, we need to keep on pushing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we're all here today. We're talking about it. We are sharing it with friends, family, and it is a hot topic as well. The conversation is stirred. Like, we know that people are noticing this. The press were coming out with all these articles on that day that Grant Shapps basically said that regulation was going to happen.
And that was the interesting thing, because it was coordinated, and these articles were written. So I thought, having watched a few episodes of Yes Prime Minister and Yes Minister and the thick of it, etc., it felt to me that the government press office had briefed friendly journalists, said that this was happening, and they were all ready to go with articles basically saying, oh yes, e-scooters, we thought it was a great idea all along. Of course we're going to regulate for them. After saying completely the opposite for a year or so. But so it does seem like a coordinated effort had been made by the government to announce this.
But just nothing
concrete,
specific yet. And that's the key word, yes. We do believe that there should be more specifics, hopefully soon. When they're going to be legal, we still don't know.
Well, the next thing we need to do is figure out the schedule for all these 38 Acts of Parliament, etc., which are going to be in this next session.
Yes.
Once we get that schedule, we can figure out, where the transport bill is going to be, and there'll be a draft copy of the new bill, and within there'll be the detail. So that's what we're looking for now.
Yeah.
So I guess it's right to your MP time or whatever, and try and figure that out.
Yeah. So I'm sorry that we are still none the wiser, but we do know that things seem to be happening. It has been announced. It's written down. There's a link in the description. I think I saw somebody saying, "Where's the link?" I'm sorry if it's not there. I thought I put it in before we started. If I haven't put it in properly, I'll put it in the description. I know. I think it's there. Yes, it's a link. It's lordslibrary.parliament.uk, and it's number 4 in terms of the points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Electric scooters are specifically stated, so I will pop that in if it's not there, and it will give you more details. But it's just saying how basically regulation is happening, because they're going to ban or crack down on electric scooters that do not fit to the regulations. So that seems pretty clear to me that we are getting regulation. It is coming.
Yeah.
But it is there. Thank you. The current thing. It is there. Good. Yes.
Hooray.
Check the description. The link is there. Click on it. Number 4, electric scooters. Have a read. See what you think. Cool. Well, I think we should kind of start to wrap it up there, really, because
that's what there is to say at the moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think this is actually a monumentous day. It just doesn't feel like it, because we had Prince Charles mumbling his way through a pretty boring speech where he just kind of went like, "Me too, levelling up. This government's committed."
You're so
to
personal, Mark.
I mean, it was so boring. I mean, it was monumentous anyway, because it should have been the Queen, and it was Prince Charles doing his first kingly duties. But yeah, it wasn't his finest oration.
But what it does seem to mean is that things are happening. Let's just keep our eyes on the ball, eyes on the prize.
Yeah, and keep pushing.
Keep talking about it.
We need to make it impossible for them to backtrack. So this is where we need to start kind of getting this impact report together and everything else.
Just see Jane Eilish for next Queen. Yes, I will. I will take that.
Eilish the E-Queen.
Yeah, if I was ruling for one day, I would make all e-rides legal. That's for sure. You said it here first. That's my Queen wave. Anyway, we're going to sign off now. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's just keep talking about it. And yeah, fingers crossed things are going to change very soon. We're going to hear more about regulation, hopefully very, very soon as well. So there's more to come. And after all this whole conversation, I feel like this is a positive step forward.
Yes, definitely. For sure.
Cool. Nice one.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And let's keep this conversation going. Appreciate you all. Speak soon.